Good evening, everybody. This is Dr. Mulder, and tonight I have a good friend of mine and a special guest, Lady Karen. And as you will notice from her accent, she is not from this country. But one heck of a nice person. I know Lady Karen and her husband, and they're just fantastic people, and I consider them family. But coincidentally, she is one hell of a radionics buff, and I thought it'd just be fantastic to bring her on the show and just kind of talk about some of her interest in the radionics field and some of the things that she's done. So, with that being said, I, the floor is yours. Proceed.
Dr. Motor, Dr. Motor, Dr. Motor, did you actually enjoy the photograph with the little video I sent you earlier?
Yes, I
May the,
did.
may the force be with you.
Yeah, oh, that is so hilarious. Yeah, apparently, I don't know. Was it is it your grandson loves Star Wars or something? And
Yeah,
you,
my son and grandson, they're Star Wars folks, yes, uh-huh.
oh, okay. Oh, yeah. And so, yeah, you did. And who was the character that you were?
Oh, Princess Leia, and then of course I have a Belgian Malinois, so I thought he could just be Chewbacca because he's kind of, that brownie colored and hairy. So
Uh,
So yeah, so we had the outfit and we did the little video that I sent to my son and grandson. So they were in hysterics.
Oh yes, I thought it was hilarious. But yeah, this it's just a lot of wacky things go on in your home, and what can I say? So let me ask you, how did this radionics thing get started with you? What was it that made you look at this and think to yourself, let me give this a try? When was that moment?
Well, actually, that moment was, and it's back in the 80s. So, I can't say it was, but it was back in the 80s. So I'm showing my age here, obviously, but it was back in England. And my sort of adopted grandmother, lovely lady, Beryl Rose, she had done a training course with Tansy. And I'm sure many of you folks out there, or maybe you haven't heard of Tansy. And she comes over one day and she tells me all about this course she was doing called Radionics. And I'm like, okay, you're making radios, transistor radios, which everybody says, right? So
Right.
anyway, so the next time I went to her house, it's like, oh, give me some blood. I'm like, oh, okie dokie, what are we doing here? So she's basically working with one of the original Tansy units, where in those days you used blood or you used hair or fingernails. And of course, in the UK, radionics is legal to work on people and animals for health. So she got herself a little business and she was treating folks and their dogs and their cats. And at that point, I knew she had this little black box and I knew she had a pendulum and she would put things in a well and then she would do homeopathy and she was explaining like how she could put something here and she could transfer its energy into this other bottle over here and give it to the patient or the client and mail it to them, but she could also treat them anywhere in the world. She was in Somerset, England, or was it Devon? It was Devon or Somerset in England, and she had clients in Australia. She had them all over. Well, at that time, Dr. Moder, I was quite young and I was going through this stage of like, who am I? What am I? I mean, I would go home and my mother would say, are we vegan, vegetarian, pescatarian? What are we? Are we Buddhist today? What are we? And I actually lived quite close to Glastonbury. And as probably a lot of you know, Glastonbury is very mystical, right? Avalon, King Arthur, and all of that stuff. So I used to attend a lot of the lectures there. Color science philosophy from Theo Gimbo. There were all kinds of lectures. There all kinds of stuff that really back in the 80s was, people really didn't know. There wasn't anything out there because, you didn't have internet. We didn't have cell phones. And at that time, I was a nurse. I was at nursing school, or I'd become a registered nurse and working for the National Health Service. So I was very much into health and into healing. And I kind of got into metamorphosis, which was a form of reflexology, using essential oils. And and was always a little on the holistic side. In fact, in the early days, I worked along with a couple of other nurses and doctors, and we did some excellent research and work on care of ulcers and wound care and helping people heal and looking into nutrition and other things. But radionics really didn't happen for me then. So years go by, and I'm living in the US at this, and I was working as a nurse, but I actually had a little clinic as a colon hydrotherapist. Okay, did you know that, Dr. Modi? Did I ever tell you about that job?
It sounds like a shitty job, but somebody has to do
it. It was a shitty job. Between you and no time, right? And I attended a convention in Orlando, Florida. And at the same time, there was a radionics convention happening there, or some kind of world radionics meetup. This might have been, I don't know, 15 years, 20 years ago, I'm not sure. And I'm thinking, oh, look, it's those little boxes. And I remember what Beryl had. So years go by, and I suppose it was, gosh, when did we meet? When did you call me?
It had to have been at least, I would say 3 years ago, probably close to 3 years.
Yeah. So I'm getting more into mystical things, reading a lot of books, and I'm thinking, oh, this radionics, I'd actually picked up some of the original Tansy books and a lot of the older stuff. And I'm thinking, I'd like to get a radionics device. Mm-hmm. So I actually reached out to a company and I purchased a Rad 5 and got back to start with. Well, then through looking at different websites, YouTube, what have you, I found, oh gosh, what is the name of the gentleman? He has your boxes on his site.
Oh, Joshua P. Warren.
Josh P. Warren. I found Josh P. Warren. Mm-hmm. And I'm on his site and I'm looking at one of these devices and like a Dr. Motors, whatever. And I'm thinking, I want one of those.
Right.
Shoot off my, like, oh, this is what I want. Then I get this email back and you're asking me in the email, what would you like it set for? And how did we ever get to talk? Do you remember that?
Well, I think you corresponded. It just so happened that you lived within, reasonable driving distance from me, and you and your husband, one thing led to another. We were discussing radionics, and you were, and a couple of things that could be done with them. And I think you and your husband invited me to come meet you two. And when we did, we just all hit it off, and the rest is history, as they say. But I think that's really what it was. And I brought you a few machines, a hunter killer setup, yeah. And the thing, what I liked about it, you were having and ladies and gentlemen, this is the person that had the varmint problem that I used radionics on. This was a really one hell of a great experiment. And you were there. Could you possibly tell the audience what we did concerning a certain animal that's of the canine variety?
Okay, so when you came and you visited, and straight away it's like, okay, this is my brother from another mother, right? It was like, even though it's different continents apart, we just hit it off. So first of all, I bought the hunter killer because I'd kind of got into some stuff and I thought I needed some protection, and that baby's still running. And I never forget, you're sat down there and you actually left-handedly with the pencil did the sigil for me, got it up, got it going, twiddled the knobs, and in we were going. Okay.
Right.
Then I purchased another device and we got to chit-chatting, and we had some issues with these particular creatures that were getting too close to our property. We'd lost, was it 3 cats or 4 cats? We actually lost a dog. We even lost a small dog to them. So
you had like a coyote issue, a coyote problem.
Yeah. So coyotes. I didn't know if I was allowed to mention.
Oh yeah, you're allowed to mention it. I mean, we didn't harm any animals. No animals were harmed. Yeah.
During this process, right? No animal, except for the animals that the coyotes killed. Now they were harmed. We go.
Exactly. So, yes.
So we thought, well, how can we get rid of coyotes? And we live in a nice little neighborhood here, and so we're not allowed to poison, we're not allowed to shoot, and that's really not the way to go. And if you, from the research I did, if you take a coyote and you move it, or does something else, they come back. I mean, they're like the proverbial bad penny, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then I call you and just like, oh my gosh, what can we do here? And so you used the radionics, and they moved. I mean, they were coming up right by my back gate. We would even see them in the middle of the day walking up with a rabbit in its mouth or something. And they moved, and it was a long, long time before they came. And then when they did come back, what did I do? I called you again and said, the coyotes are back. It must be breeding season. And then you did your magic, and they moved. So it's almost like you set like this 2 mile or 3 mile boundary or something. It was almost like that there was a line that they couldn't come across, and they knew not to cross it. So we sent them like, well, I don't like the neighbors down the road and across the way. Could we send them there?
Of course, anything for you. It doesn't bother me at all. But no, the thing was, we didn't want to harm them, didn't want to hurt them in any way, shape, or form. All we want them to do is find another domain. That was it, nothing more. And end the story. And of course, I mean, like you said, they're like elephants. They always like to come back to their old stomping grounds. I'm sure once there's a domain, it's always a domain, or or what have you. And so it was really a fascinating experiment, because how could this be a placebo effect, or just by sheer chance? Because there was no interaction with these coyotes. They could care less about us. All they're looking for is their next rabbit or whatever.
Uh-huh. And the problem was that not far from us there was a water source. So of course they were going to be here. So what do? We either drain the water source, which we couldn't do because they were coming to drink, and at night we love to go out drink. And there was one day when my husband, so we ride horses, okay, and he's riding out with a friend, and he come back, he said, you won't believe what I've just seen. He said, I saw a coyote. Now, are they pups? Do they call the babies pups? I'm not sure.
I'm assuming. We'll just go with that.
There's a baby coyote then, and he's in the middle of the trail, and the mother just came up, looked at my husband, picked up the coyote and the baby, and off she ran. And that was before we met you and we dispersed of the coyotes, right? So
right, yeah. Well, and again, and that was something that kind of led me into looking into possibly if we can affect animal behavior. What about horses, for example? I think today or tomorrow is the Kentucky Derby, and
today.
Is it today? Oh, okay. So we're looking at for example, using radionics against on this thing. What you would do is you get the horse that you want to win. You just basically just feed him that winning energy. Like the cheering of the crowds, whatever, the things that would escalate the spirit of the horse. Because as well as I do, horses they are very sensitive. I mean, they pick up on praise as well as they do any kind of punishment or bad temper or what have you. I mean, they're very sensitive to that kind of thing. But if you're throwing nothing but praise and that and what have you, but the rest of them you distract them. You make them start thinking about that bag of oats that's in the stall waiting on them after the race, or that filly that was out in the field, that they saw this morning that they'd like to go, have a little chat with, that kind of a thing. And so you just kind of distract the other horses, and so where they're off their game, and and start putting winning positive energy toward the one that you want to cross the finish line first. I think that's a hell of an idea. Personally, I'm looking at that as as something, looking at it as a little side hobby, seeing if I can affect horses, because when it comes to human beings, they are a pain in the ass. It's that free will thing. It gets you every time.
Gets free you every will time, doesn't it? Gets you every time.
Oh yeah, and people are unpredictable, and that's the reason why I don't like to do any kind of energy work with people, because you don't know what you're getting into, you don't know what's involved, and they're just absolute, it's a case by case basis, but we've all met our share of the, I don't know, let's just say not exactly the most normal person that you've ever met in your life. Okay, and we've all done that, and so you have to kind of be wary of this thing, and be very cautious as to how you work, with somebody on an issue. But
You know
neither
what?
here nor
Sorry, what you're saying there, it makes very, very good sense, because right now there's so many different energies around, and there's so many people that are getting into energy work that do not understand it, do not understand what they're doing, and they're basically getting attachments of things that they don't want attachments of. Okay.
there.
And then they don't know how to clear them. And we see this all the time. You see so many people angry right now and just behaving like children.
Hmm.
And so what I was actually going to say after, I got the Rad 5, and then obviously got boxes from you, was
Hmm.
that about a year later, I went over and did a course with another company. Excuse me, I'm drinking tea and eating my biscuits here, my Scotch biscuits, and crumb went the wrong way then. I went over and did an intensive course, different device, which I can do different things with. And then I met a very nice gentleman called Sammy that makes a unit called the PCR3, which I have, that I'm very impressed with. So I've kind of, they're like potato chips, aren't they? Can't just
Right.
have one. So what I found with the devices I have different devices for different operations. And some are good for certain things and some are good for the others. Okay. And some you can do a little bit of everything on. But what you put out there, Dr. Moder, is when you kind of look at the cost of devices, which can get pretty expensive. I mean, you can look at everything from, there's a guy in Australia actually that makes a pretty neat deal. It's on a card. And then with the card, you power it up with certain things, and you can use crystals and things. And you can probably buy that for $50, right? And then you've
Hmm.
got other devices out there. There's one gentleman that has a unit that's very similar to the original Tansy. He's asking $8,000 for it.
Right.
But at the end of the day, the device doesn't work without the operator. And not everybody can operate the device. And when I met you and I watched you work, it was like, oh my gosh. I mean, you centered into your heart space, you brought in source, whatever you call it. And it was almost like there was a light around you. It's kind of a bit woo-woo, really, isn't it? Because you were just right there and you just knew. And I could see when you were twiddling the dials, it just stopped. You knew the number to leave it at. You knew with the stick pad where to put everything. And it takes time to do that, right?
Uh, well, it's kind of like learning how to ride a bicycle. Once you learn, you never forget. Number one, I don't know. I've done this, thousands, if not tens of thousands of times, in my career. Tuning these things, and it's just second nature. I don't even think about it anymore. And honestly, I've told people this, and maybe this is sacrilege to the true radionics people out there, but I'm just stating a fact. If you, for me personally, I don't know how it is for anybody else, but for me personally, if I can visualize the end results in my mind, if I can have a picture of what it is that I'm trying to accomplish, that's all I need. I don't need
Yeah.
any kind of samples whatsoever. And I just focus on that. Every time I turn that dial, I am focusing on that very same thing, that picture of the end results. That's all I concentrate on. I could give a shit about the journey. All I care about is the destination.
Absolutely. Because when I go in and I've got my, as I call it, my lab, and I keep it clean, nobody's allowed in there except for me. And I go
Right.
in there, what I tend to do is I tend to do, when I get in there first, I'll do the heart breath meditation. And that's basically a simple meditation where I'll sit, I'll close my eyes, but I always have my feet on the ground. And then I imagine like a pinhole of light above me, and I'll bring that light down into my heart. Then I take it down to the earth. I bring it up to the heart, take it up, go back, go forth a few times. I kind of put myself in this sphere of being protected because I don't want any, little crispy critters around me or anything, right?
Right.
And then at that point, then I've got in that, like, Jose Silva would put you into that alpha brain state and wave where you can kind of manifest more. And then I can go to the device, and I use a pendulum a lot, not just a stick pad, but I use a pendulum. And they basically have a lot of what's called reagents, okay? And I'm sure a lot of the listeners know what they are. Have crystal reagents. I use anything as a reagent. Maybe it's kind of essential oils. Maybe it's a bit of like hoodoo oils or something like that. But whatever I have quite a collection. And I'll just go over and I'll have a photograph of if it's the person, an animal, or something I want to manifest. And I'll get my yes and no. And then I'll, with my right hand, or with my left hand, it's like, is there anything I need in this cupboard or on this shelf or in this test tube? And once I get a yes, is it this one, and this one? And I'll look at them. So then it's so wonderful that I'm drawn to them. And all of a sudden I pick it up and it's like, oh my gosh. I mean, I did something this morning for someone and I was drawn straight forward to a reagent that was for psychic attack. So this person's a psychic attack. Now, I had like 15 other reagents there. And I never know where they are. I won't put them where I know because I'm thinking I don't want to make this decision. It's going to be made for me. And my finger put straight on it and I got the yes on it. And it's just doing it. But I find if I get in that, like you say, if I get into what I want. So I think the first time anybody the first win, you never forget it. And once it's that big win that like, is this a synchronicity or is this like, does this happen or did I do this? Did Radionics do this? And my biggest win was about 2 years ago. And I wanted to sell a business that I had in Texas. And I just needed it to be sold. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, how am I going to do this? What have you? And I thought, I'm going to use Radionics. My gosh, I got Radionics. Why not use it? So I have a friend that lives in Dallas. His name is Chris, and I couldn't word it rightly. And I think I tried to call you and I couldn't get hold of you or something. And I called him and said, Chris, I want to sell a business. And he said, well, what do you do? And I'm like, well, somebody will want to buy it. I was thinking of all the terminologies that I was going to write my intent for this operation. And he said, no. He said, Karen, make it a love spell. And I'm like, what do you mean? So in the end, the intent that we used was interested party will fall in love with this particular business and want to buy it. I'm like, okay, we'll give it a go. So I set the operation. I walked away. Within 3 days, I think I had 4 people that had reached out to me wanting to buy it. I had 2 offers that were good offers, and within a week, I had a letter of intent and a contract on it, and it was sold within 60 days.
Fantastic. I'm going to steal that idea.
What do you think of that? I mean,
I'm going to steal it.
You can have it. I mean, is that not? So you got to think. Sometimes you have to think out of the box. So you have to think. My intent was I need to sell it, and so if you're desperate for something, you won't get it. And I knew I needed to sell it because my manager was about to leave to have her first child and wasn't going to come back, and I wasn't living close to Dallas, and I like, oh my God, it's a headache. Got to get another manager. Da 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 da. And all I could think and write down was like, bringing a buyer. And when I called Chris, he's like, no, we're not going this way. And let's just take a minute. Let's just breathe. And let's just kind of figure out what we can do. And when he brought up like the love spell, it's like, oh, so the person or the company actually, once they had the phone call with me, once they visited, they said, oh, we actually love this facility.
Yeah, exactly.
The love spell worked. Yeah. So, and I used the same spell last year and that worked again. So listeners, if you have a business to sell, or maybe you have a car to sell. I had a car to sell last year and it wasn't selling, and I did the love spell. Interested party will fall in love with this car and want to buy it. And I think it was a week later, I got a call from the agent that had the car, and he said, hey, Karen, we got somebody interested in your car. This is the offer. What do you want to do? I'm like, yeah, we're good. Let's sell it. So yeah, there you go. That's a freebie there.
Oh yeah, I know which car you're talking about, and I was in love with it too. That thing was going 80 miles an hour sitting still.
Yes.
Oh, that was a beautiful car. That was a beautiful car. I commend you. And yeah. Anyway, it's just amazing the kind of things that you're able to do with these devices. And I try, and you, again, you brought up the very same point that I always try to bring up. The most important part of these machines is the operator. Yeah, you can have a $30,000 radionics machine, but if the operator isn't worth a damn, the results is probably going to be mediocre at best. And it's just the way it is. And if you're able to train and focus yourself on this and relax and don't overthink it. And I understand when people are new to something, when they're foreign to something, no pun intended or no, but anyway, but but when they're when they're new to a technology like this, they don't know it. It's strange. They're trying to feel their way through it. What works, what doesn't work. Am I doing this correctly, and what have you. And I think what I need to do is start up a series. And matter of fact, I was talking to a good friend of mine out of Michigan last night, and we were discussing this very same thing. And his suggestion was to bring up, doing step by step videos about how to set up a machine. To really go step by step. What does the stick feel like? And if you go through all this and you still can't get a stick, what else can you do? Other options that are available. Excuse me, in tuning these devices, because what they're all about the mind. They're mind machines, and that's what Joshua always says on the website. It's always talking about the mind, and that's really where it's at. And for whatever reason, and I've noticed this too, yes, you can use a machine that does not have electronics in it, but I have noticed that the results will magnify and rapidly manifest itself more often than not when it is electronic. And that's another thing that I always thought was interesting. I mean, I've seen radionics devices that are nothing but a sheet of paper with a design on them. Do they work? Oh yeah, they'll work. Will they work as well as the things I build? Well, it kind of goes back to what I said. It's the operator. How good is the operator? Frankly, I'm not that good. I have a lot of practice, but it doesn't make me the best in the world. Okay, it's just that I could probably handle myself. Using a golf analogy, I could probably, I'm probably a scratch golfer. Okay, that doesn't mean I can go into pros and go to the Masters, but it just means that I can hold my own on a golf course. But again, this kind of technology, it's all about the operator. It's all about focus. It's all about visualizing what it is that you want to get. And another thing too, Lady Karen, I want to put past you and see what your opinion is on this. And this is something I always suggest to people. Uh, you know, there's two things, the two main things that people buy these machines for. It's money or anything financial, and number two is usually like romance and that kind of a thing. And so when it comes to the money, I always suggest to people. I mean, again, it's free will. Do as you see fit. If this works better for you, please by all means do it. But don't wish for the money itself. Wish for the thing that you want the money for. Like for example, that a new car that somebody may be selling that I am envious of, and that kind of a thing, or that new piece of furniture or that new house, whatever it may be, instead of wishing for that pile of cash. What's your opinion on that?
Oh, absolutely, 100% agree because, you know, and I think, we talked earlier anyway, didn't we? And
Hmm.
the things that I've said is that, like if I wanted something to happen, okay, so it's radionics. If I were to say to you, okay, I want $1 million, I'm going to set a radionics device for $1 million, right? Well,
Hmm.
how is it, it's not going to bring me $1 million. I'm not going to have, a bird fly over and poop $1 million on my front driveway and I'm going to go out and say thank you. It doesn't work that way. But what has happened is it'll work in ways that if you're putting out like this is what I want it for, it'll open up roads or avenues. You will meet people that you might have like, oh gosh, how did I meet that person? Or where, and then that person will bring you they bring you in like an opportunity. It may be an opportunity for a new job. It may be an opportunity like, oh my gosh, you got that piece of land and we want to put a Costco there and we're going to give you $8 million for that piece of, 2 acres or something. You
Oh
know,
yeah.
it comes in ways that you don't expect it. And I know that somebody said to me a long time ago, and I don't know if I 100% believe it. It's like if you put something out and you say, well, I want $500. And, you know, a dear person, maybe a grandparent dies and leaves you $500. Did the radionics kill that person? I don't believe that, okay? A lot of people get scared, but I still believe you need to be careful how you word things. So you sit there, and when you're going to write your intention, and I always like to write mine in pencil because I believe graphite, it's from the earth, it's you know, it's lead, it's pencil, it's wood, and I'll sit down there and I'll put myself in that frame and think, what is it I want? So if I wanted a new car, I'm going to think of the car. Maybe I'll print out a picture of the car, and then I'll have that picture and I'll put it on the device, and I'll write the intent that, you know, this car belongs to me. And the other thing is you don't say, I want something. You have to believe you already have it. And that's the difference. So when I worked on the selling of the business, and then I changed the intent that I had sold the business, and the whole time in my head is if I'm doing an I am statement, you know, you're going to imagine what you want, not how it's going to be, excuse me, at the end thing. I'm going to imagine myself driving that car. So if I'm wanting the Lamborghini, I close my eyes and imagine it. I can smell it. The leather's great. I'm driving it down the road. Oh, hell, I've gone to a racetrack and I'm doing 150 miles an hour, you know, and it's me. And that's it works better than just looking at it from a distance, because if you look at it from a distance, you're only going to ever have it from a distance. So you have to like be in the car, feel the car, smell the car. I mean, does that make sense?
Yes, makes total sense.
You know, and the other thing that a lot of people, and you talk about it, and you used a different term, you know, people want to get paid later. What was it? How did that go? It made me laugh.
It's revenge.
Yeah.
You know, and I try to tell people, and matter of fact, you kind of walked into something that I tried to stress last week. I was dealing with some black magicians, and I'm not going to mention any names on the air, but I will say at least two of them are fairly infamous, and they both appeared on Coast to Coast, and so I mean they're out there. You could look them up, and so these are the real deal Hollyfield black magicians, and that's you know, and some of the people there they're talking about you know, revenge. And I said don't go for, you know, this is my personal opinion, and again that's how I present it. Hey, it's just my opinion. Do what you want to do. I'm just stating an opinion. Go for justice. Seek justice, not revenge. With justice, it has a better energy to it. It's righteous. Justice, the word itself, is righteous. Revenge, not so righteous. It's kind of evil. It has an evil energy to it. But with justice, that's when the victim is made whole. That's when the perpetrator is, you know, is given his just reward, you know, etc. And that's how I try to present it to them. When you go for justice, I mean, you get everything. And plus, you have a clear conscience.
Well, exactly. I mean, you know, if it's always about revenge, then that revenge and that hatred is inside you and it's eating you away. And while you're too busy thinking about how you're going to get back at that person, you're not living and enjoying your life.
No.
So if you put it out there to get the justice and you go on with your life, I mean, isn't that the whole thing as well with radionics? I mean, if you want to manifest something without radionics and you're doing, you know, I am beautiful, I am wealthy, I am this and I am that, and you do all this stuff. You
Right.
got to do it 24/7. You know, who's going to stay awake doing it? To actually for that to work, it takes so long. I mean, it can happen, but it's going to take many years. You know, when we get out the radionics device, we set it. Well, I go about, you know, making a cup of tea, taking my dog for a walk, and guess what? It's working. It's manifesting for me, and I don't even have to think about it.
Yes, it's
So
the tool. It's an extension
yeah,
of you.
extension of use. So if I wanted justice on somebody, you know, or I had a lawsuit going on or something, well
Mm-hmm.
then, you know, I'm going to use the sigils. I'm going to use whatever I have, or if I want to dial rates in or whatever I want to do, and I'm going to have that going, and I'm just going to put it out there, and you know, maybe it's a lawsuit. I imagine myself, I've won this lawsuit, and I kind of see this picture of my mind of me shaking my hand with the attorney, And he's like, well done, we've won the case or what have you. But I go on with my life. I don't think about it, because one of the things is we can stop things by our thoughts. We know that our thoughts change everything. So even if I set a device and I'm thinking, oh shit, I can't win this. Oh my God, this isn't going to happen. You know, it's going to be awful.
Yeah.
And the radionics and everything, you're blocking it. You've got to be open. So you have to go in, set what you want, and then forget about it in a certain way, get on with your life, and like you say, go on. So if you're searching for justice, then you know what you're doing is right. You're going to have justice. This person stole from me. They're going to pay me back. They're, you know, or whatever it is that they've done, or if they've, you know, killed somebody, you know, they're going to go to prison and do their time, or whatever else it is. But if all you're looking for is revenge, that you want to, you know, give them a heart attack, or you want to see them die in a horrible way, a lot of the things that we put out like that can come back on us.
Exactly.
When you're starting being, do you notice, Dr. Moder, you know, if you feel, oh, I don't feel well today, and you come out and you say you don't feel well, guess what? You're not going to feel well. So some mornings I wake up and I feel like crap, and I look in the mirror, and I don't look too hot sometimes, but I look in the mirror, hey, babe, you're beautiful, and you feel wonderful today. Then I go and get a cup of coffee, and, you know, I may not be 100% that day, but I feel a hell of a lot better than I would have been if I'd got up and said, oh, you look like, you know, you look like poo, and oh my gosh, I feel awful, and why don't I just go in the chair? And, you know, and it is that positive mindset.
Yeah, it's your attitude.
Yeah. And one of the things you know, I had a bad accident about a year and a half ago, and I, you know, dislocated my shoulder and broke my humerus, right? And I ended up having surgery, and I went to physical therapy, and basically I was told I'd probably get 70% use of my arm back, right? You know, the movement of my shoulder. I got 99% use of it.
Rob, awesome.
Well, but let me tell you how I did it. I went back to the PT about a week ago and went in. I said, hi, Josh. He said, how are you? I said, I want to show you something. He videoed me, sent it to the surgeon. The surgeon sent a video back like, oh my God, this is unreal. And then we sat down and we talked. He said, what did you do? I said, well, most people that go to physical therapy, they do the exercises, they go home, they watch Netflix or Amazon, you know, and they don't do another exercise, so they go back to PT, or they do a half-ass exercise. I said, what did I do? No, every day, twice a day, in a lot of pain and crying, I worked through it. I'll tell you this, I mean, I used whatever I could do to help me with the positive mindset. I used my radionics, I used everything that I had, and I threw it at it, and I did not quit. And I kept going, and now I got 99% of my shoulder. So, and that was every day. I'm going to get better. I'm going to get stronger. I would be downstairs with little 3-pound weights trying to push them. Like, I can do this. And I listened to a video, about a week or so ago, of a gentleman, I can't think of his name. And he says that most humans physically only use 45% of what our bodies can do. And I think he was an ex-Marine or something. And in it, he basically said, you know, if you're running a marathon or you're doing something or you're lifting a weight and you're like, oh, I'm spent, I can't do this. You say, this is only 45%. I can give it another 5%. And that is what I've been doing without even realizing until I'd only watched this video a week or so ago, was that I was there like, I've got this. Yes, it hurts. I can do this. You know, I can do another 5 reps. I can do whatever. And you know, and I talked earlier as well about, you know, maybe getting my husband kind of to talk about where it comes in with the consciousness, right? And we probably need to get him on a show in the next few weeks so that we can kind of talk about how the mind really works, in how we trick ourselves into thinking something that's not real. And I kind of got off the subject of you going to the black magicians and going back to it. I did listen to your show, and I was so proud of you.
Well, you know, and here's the thing. I had no fear. I had no fear when I was there. These people, and again, as I said in my last show, I was treated with respect, with kindness, generosity. It was unexpected. It was unexpected. You know, you didn't. Hell, I've never been around these type of people before, but you know, could have been a deception and part of some master plan or part of some hidden agenda. Oh hell, anything's possible. Did I get that feeling that it was like that? No, I felt it was legitimate myself. You know, but the thing you know, if I was if I had angels guarding me, I had them there. Again, I would walk in that temple, and I could see in my mind's eye. Well, you're talking about these little slithery creatures. You and I have probably seen the same things, and you can't really. It's like they pop into your mind. It's like you see them through your. You know, I don't know how to explain it. Like not really your imagination. It's just like a movie screen appears, and you see things that are not there, but they are there. And I would see these little black creatures, and as I would walk into this temple, they would retreat. They would back up. They wouldn't get anywhere near me. I mean, and again, I walked in there with zero fear, but I knew that if I attended any of these rituals or ceremonies that were inside of this temple, that whatever was going on in there would probably attach itself to me, or at least try to attack me in some way, shape, or form. So I stayed the hell out of the way. I never went in there during any kind of a ceremony. Yeah, was my curiosity up? Yeah, well, of course. I mean, it's just normal curiosity. But I knew that for my own personal protection, I needed to stay the hell out of this thing when it was active, when these people were doing whatever it is they were doing inside that temple.
Oh, absolutely. I had a situation many years ago back in the New Forest in England, and I had joined at that time a little like coven of Wicca type witches. Okay, and I was, like I said, my mother used to say, "Are we Buddhist? What are we this week?" I'm
Right.
trying to figure out what am I. Are we going to church? Are we this? Are we that? Are we Church of England? Yes, you know. So we ended up going to the New Forest, and we were going to do a ritual in the woods, and it was all supposed to be nice and light and wonderful. And the gentleman that was running it was Kabbalistic, okay? And he invited this friend of his with him that straight away I felt pure evil on this guy, and it just felt awful.
Mm-hmm.
So we found our way into the woods, short, I'll make it short. We did the ritual, and it was a beautiful evening. All of a sudden, everything got dark. The wind was kind of started blowing, and I'm there thinking, oh, I don't want to be here. I want to go home. And my girlfriend and her husband, they were looking at me as well, like we need to be done with this. Let's get this over and done with. And I think I was saying Psalm 23, and Lord's Prayer and all this thing, completely quietly, continuously. Well, when we
Mm-hmm.
had to leave, couldn't find our way out of the woods. It
Oh,
was like the path had changed. It was, oh yeah, then we couldn't find the car keys, and it was so, it scared me. It did scare me. I was very young at the time, and that was the first encounter that I had with understanding that not everything can be light and wonderful, and there can be darker things here. And
mm-hmm.
over the years, I've had a few, but when it comes to like black magicians, and I do have a friend that's a black magician, and I have friends that are witches, and I have a friend that's a Catholic priest, and da 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 da.
Right.
Is that why would my friend like you go there, Brad, and you're going there as their guest, and they like you, you're a likable guy, right?
I
So why,
like to think so.
so when people say, well, why would they want to hurt you? What would be the reason? Why would they put time and effort into hurting you? It's not like, oh, because I'm a black magician, I'm going to hurt everybody I see. I mean, a lot of them, if they have their business, I presume that they do their business to do what a customer or client pays them. Like I have friends in radionics that do things for people that are lighter things than that. And I know that there's probably magicians that do radionics to do darker things, like could be like you say, not to get justice, maybe to get revenge or something.
Right.
The other thing about it was, can I ask you, did you actually go into the temple?
Yes, I actually walked into it, but not when during any kind of a ceremony. I did go into it just out of my own curiosity, and it was definitely had a black theme to it. I'm not going to go into any kind of the symbolism or whatever, but when you walked into it, you did get the feeling that this was something that was probably, you know, being used for dark purposes.
Yeah, and
Uh,
if Archangel Michael or whatever was looking out for you, and also if those entities knew that you weren't going to be there for them to be able to use. They wouldn't have wanted you to enter anyway. They wouldn't have wanted you to be there. If they knew that you couldn't kind of take you over or use you, it's kind of, I suppose if you're going back into radionics and you say, there's a lot of healers out there that do hands-on healing. And I have some friends that do this. Well, you can put your hands on some pretty scary people in this day and age, right? And when you're using your own energy and somebody is very, very much like a vampire, you know, we've always felt that person, oh my God, they drain me. You know, they're very, very much like a vampire. So with the hands-on healers, they're healing them and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm so tired at the end of the day. And you can see a lot of these people age and actually die quite young. Going back to the healing side of radionics, which I state again is of course illegal in the US, but is legal in the rest of the world, but in the UK, is a lot of the healers, and I have a friend actually in Canada that does radionics for healing, and I'm a client of his, okay, is that when he does the healing with the radionics device, he's not using his energy, he's not using his life force. And where I'm going with this is what I understand with the black magicians is a lot of these entities, you know, everybody wants to be paid. So when I have a session, I'm paying the guy in Canadian dollars to treat me with his radionics device. It's taken none of his energy other than him, the intent, and the dowsing to find out on the body systems what's wrong to help me heal. If you're going to a black magician, from what I understand, is that if they're using their radionics or they're using their magic, the entities that they use want to be paid. And I understand that they pay with their own blood. It might be a finger prick. Am I right, Brad?
That is correct.
Yeah, they're paying with their own blood. Well, you know, what is blood? It's DNA. I don't want to give anybody, no offense, I don't want to give you my DNA. I don't want to give anybody my DNA. And I certainly don't want to give a darker energy my DNA. So, you know, at some stage or the other, you know, I believe that they're going to pay by these entities. It's like, okay, we're feeding the blood, but when does it ever stop?
Exactly. And again, it may look great on the outside, you know, it may be shiny and all this good stuff. But I don't know. It's like the monkey paw scenario that we were talking about. Yeah, you may get something, but you're going to be giving something back. There's always a catch. There's always something there that's never really, you know, stated out loud or is, you know, said in code, or it could be a million different things. But I think there is some kind of deception involved. There has to be, you know, because I look at, okay, we have light and the dark. Okay, we have good, we have evil. My idea is that one is the exact opposite of the other. With good, I believe we go back to justice, we go back to, you know, love, peace, harmony, these kinds of things, right? Forgiveness, whatever it may be, all the righteous things, all the righteous emotions that we're supposed to have. But when you go to the other side, that's where you have hate and anger and, you know, lust and all the million different things that go on that are basically the dark side of our, you know, of what makes us human. Now, and there's the balance of the two. That's what makes us function. That's how we're able to accomplish things with a balance. But these people are delving into one side or the other, and this was the weird thing. And this was, and what really astounds me about these black magicians is, and I think I mentioned to you earlier, they will call upon angels as easily as they will demons. It's like either one. It doesn't make any difference. I mean, they've used Raphael. I know for a fact. I know that apparently Michael has been called upon in some of these ceremonies. And so, but why are they delving in the dark when the light has a better payoff?
Well, yeah, you know, exactly. Equal opportunities, I suppose.
Yeah, that's what I said. Yeah, the equal opportunity employers. Yeah.
On that one. And you know, it's with everything. I mean, there's a lot of people I see that go to church, and there are some of the meanest, nastiest people that I see sit on the front pew of church.
Right.
So, you know, are all black magicians bad? No. I mean, I know that you have one that's a very good friend, right? And you've had
Several.
a beer with him. Yeah, several, exactly. And it's you know, I have a multitude of friends all over the world that have different beliefs. I have a very good friend, and she's Buddhist, and it's just, oh my gosh, it's one of the things is what I wanted to share was I've been working. I have a friend that's psychic, okay, and you've met this lady, and
Yes.
she said she went in to have some, I think you pronounce it Ricky or Reiki. I can never pronounce it. And it's one of those things, a lot of these spiritualist things from years ago, people would have to go and train for years and years and years to become a Reiki master, right?
Hmm.
And now you can get onto Facebook and you can do a course over a weekend and get a certificate. And she told me she went into this lady's house to have the session. And she said she didn't feel right, which I would have said, you know what, if I don't feel right, oh my gosh, I think I'm going to have diarrhea, I'm going home, right?
Right, right.
You know, make up a shitty excuse, right?
Right.
So she said she felt something dark in the corner. When she left there, she had picked up some kind of attachment and it was hard to get rid of. And she had to do some major work and have some major people that were very strong in their work to get this attachment away from her.
Hmm.
And you know, we have to be so guarded with our energy. You went in, as you called it, to what was it? You named it Dr. Motor and the Gates to Hell or something,
Yeah, the
right?
gates of hell. Yes.
Yeah, but you carried with you blessing salt. You carried with you all kinds of
Yeah.
things. That's another thing that I use, and I don't know whether you've tried this or not, but I actually have some water from the River Jordan. I have blessing salt. I have blessing oil. I keep the New Testament Bible. You don't want to use the Old Testament Bible because it doesn't make you feel well. But if you want to, you can actually put like the New Testament into the well or onto the plate, and you can broadcast that to yourself or to somebody.
Hmm. Hmm.
You can use like blessing salt. You can use oils. Like I said, I've used all kinds of different type of what I call reagents to do different operations that I'm using them for. But
Yeah.
when you went in there, what did you learn by this? I mean, or what did you give to them? Because there was a trade in everything. They invited you. What did they want from you, and what did you get from them?
What did I get from them? I think they they hmm. What did I? Well,
What did you learn?
what did I learn? Well, here's what gets me is I have a lot more questions than I do answers, to be honest with you. For example, at least three-quarters of the people there before they went into the black arts, they all had one religion in common, and it's and I'm speaking in code, but it has a pope, and it's out of a small landlocked country in Italy that starts with a V.
Yeah.
Okay, and I'm just saying. And so my question was, who dropped the ball at their church to make them want to turn to the other side? Number one, I don't think it was the doctrine of the church. I think it had something to do with the personnel. I think it was
Yeah.
a personnel issue. And so, but that's another story. Uh, what did I learn from them? I I learned that I think people when they reach when they go when they have desperate times, when they reach desperate times, they take desperate measures. I think that may be it. You'd be surprised how many times I've heard from a good friend of mine who's a magician that people will contact him because they're desperate. For example, it may be a woman who's being beaten by her husband, or maybe a child that's been molested, or it could be a million different things. And these people are desperate. They want the abuse to stop, and they want the perpetrator to, you know, go away or is incarcerated or whatever. And they go to these people out of desperation, I think. Um, I may be wrong on this. It just seems to be an observation on certain things on certain people. It's not a common denominator, but it does come into play.
And you know,
Uh,
one of the things is I'm very good friends with a lady that's quite well known, multidimensional, and we talked earlier today, and she was saying how this new age community, there are so many bad people in it. There are people that are looking to get away from the churches. They're looking for other things or another reason or a different source, and they're getting communities that are actually worse than the churches.
Yeah, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say to these people. I don't have the answer for them with this, because we know that we've all heard the stories, and it's even become a joke, at times about altar boys and the priests and that kind of a thing,
Yeah.
but these are actual situations. I mean, this kind of crap actually takes place on a larger scale than you would imagine, from what I understand. And I think that is probably the genesis for some of the turning of the hearts away from the church. I think that it definitely comes into play. But again, who knows? Who knows?
You and I talked a long, long time ago about a very who was a celebrity back in England, back in the 70s and 80s, and was friendly with the royal family and everything. And it come to find out that he was one of the worst pedophiles out there, right?
Yeah, and he is King Charles' best friend.
Yeah, can I mention his name?
Please.
Yeah, Jimmy Savile. Now, as a younger person, Jimmy Savile would have a TV show, and it was Jim Will Fix It. And what it was he would have, like, people would write in, like, my child has got leukemia, Disney World. And then, Jim would reply, and they would send the child to Disney World. So there was all these children getting all these things, and they get a little lanyard to wear with a little tag on it saying, Jim fixed it for me. And I never liked him. I never liked watching the show. There was something about him that I picked up in those days. So I suppose I had a lot of abilities back then that I did, that I know now that I was right in realizing this. And this came out. When did the truth come out? Do you remember? Was it 5-6 years ago that the truth?
Yeah,
or even,
yeah, 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah, yeah. And then a lot of these children, he would go to children's homes to visit them, and the staff would like, oh, Jimmy Savile's here. He's brought candy for the kids. And yeah, did he always bring candy for the kids? And he had sexually abused children for years. And like you said, he actually even went into the royal family and gave them consultations on how to look better for the public and how to make themselves seem more human and more down to earth than being the royal family. And they took advice from this guy. And he died before they ever could prove it and they could ever put him in prison. So he never paid for it in this life. Right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, so that just tells you it's right in your midst. And that's true freaking evil. That's about as evil as it gets. That's true evil. If there's anything that can be labeled as satanic, that was satanic.
Yes. And why are, like you say, some of these people, why are people drawn towards things? And what is so scary right now is so many people are being drawn into something that they think is good. They're being drawn into maybe new agey type things. And it's just a cover. It is just a cover. And there are so many young girls that are being sexually abused, and people are being taken for money. I mean, people have been taken for their homes even. I mean, I even know close to where I reside right now, there's a fortune teller that, scares people into giving her money. You pay me and I'm going to pray for you. And if you don't do this, this is going to happen. I mean, this is terrible. And this is so sad when people just desperately want help and they don't know what to do and they don't know where to go.
And I think that's a lot of the people that knock on their doors. Again, I may be totally wrong with this, but I'm a firm believer in free will. I truly am. What follow your heart, whatever it may be, as long as it doesn't harm another human being or what have you in any way, shape, or form. I could care less what you do. It's none of my business. All right, and that's the way I feel about this kind of stuff. But does it resonate with me? Not a chance in hell. I mean, hell, I was good friends with a gentleman who was probably more powerful than anybody that was there, and there were some powerful people there, and that was Charles Casamano, the infamous Uncle Chucky.
Uncle Chucky, evil Uncle Chucky, right?
Yeah, yes, the evil. Did I say evil Uncle Chucky? But as a person, I love the guy. Even though he tried to kill me, I still love the guy. I don't know why. he was like my mentor. I owed him, you know, uh, he uh, he uh, he's the guy that really gave me my career. If it wasn't for Charles Casamano and his writings, there would be no Dr. Mulder.
Well, exactly. And I've read so much of the stuff that he's put out there, and I've watched the YouTube videos. And the only thing I regret is I would have loved to have met him.
Oh yeah, I like I said, I think I had the very last interview. I did the very last interview with him after his first stroke, and as I mentioned on the previous show, you could tell that he had some issues, and after having the second stroke, apparently that's pretty much where the the Charles Casamano that we knew no longer exists, and so uh, I don't know what to say. Again, the man was a genius, and I always like to pay homage to him every opportunity that I have. Like when I do these shows with magicians, we always bring up Charles Casamano because he is the true father of bringing magic and radionics together. If it was not for Charles Casamano, none of these gentlemen would have had this meeting last week. Because, and again, this is another thing I try to stress to these people that radionics is a firewall. It is a protector. And even Chuck stressed that it's like when you deal with this stuff, it's like a light switch. After you flip the switch, what more connection do you have to it? I mean, that's pretty much it. But is there a chance of doing some, certain operations, especially like in the health field, or trying to help somebody with some kind of energy work using radionics? Is there a chance of some kind of energetic, blowback? Hell yeah. That's the reason why I refuse to do it. I will not do energetic work for anybody. If I do it for somebody, it's an emergency life death type scenario, and it's going to be on a very special case by case basis. But I will, generally 99.9% of the time, I will not do it. And so, but and I always try to tell people they are the ones with the magic, and that's something I stressed on the last show. And again, the we are miracles. Like I said, we are walking miracles. We have the magic. A lot of the times that I do operations, and again, I would say that it's a vast majority of them, I don't call on any kind of entity whatsoever. All I do is picture the end results in my mind, and I turn dials. I don't invoke any kind of a spirit, whether it's angelic or demonic or non-angelic, demonic, just neutral, generic. I don't evoke anything. The only thing I picture is my intent or the final the destination of the operation, the final outcome of the operation. That's all I do when I turn dials. Nothing more, nothing less. Maybe I get into some kind of a trance state temporarily that only lasts for a few seconds that I'm not aware of. But again, it's just a matter of that intent and turning dials. It's a tool. And I try to tell these people, it's a firewall. It will help protect you with some of these things that you're doing. If you're going to do these ceremonies, that's up to you. It's free will. Again, if you're going to do these ceremonies, at least use this technology to give you some form of protection, some way of some kind of a buffer if you're going to do this stuff. And that's really my main warning that I've given to them about this.
And when you were here, you did go into a trance. I saw you go into a trance. You went into a trance. And in the early days, and one of the things, and maybe any listeners, if they're having trouble, and like you say, maybe you should do, or maybe I can help you, we can do a show on stick or finding the other things, is, and my friend in Dallas actually told me, he said, Karen, he said, if you got to get yourself, like, if you're going on the stage and you're going to perform, you're going in, your stage clothes, or if you're going to go, whatever, you'd have to find something that puts you in the mood for this. I said, whether it's you get a magic wand and you look like Mickey Mouse with a witch's hat on or something, and you can have a prop. So when you do radionics, in the early days, I did have a prop. I had like a little wand, and I wore this particular, it had stars and things on, like little like cover that I wore, and I felt like I was this magical person, and it put me in that brainwave and state to be able to do the stick and find everything. Now I'm like you, I just go in there, boom, 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 smile, dial, tick, 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 and I've done it, and and it's over with.
Right.
But, yeah, but I mean, it's like, at first it was theatrical before.
Yeah, and again,
What witchcraft is, I mean, whether it's white or whether it's black, or whether you go to church, if you go to, I was brought up Church of England, it was all ceremonially of chiming bells and chalices and doing this and saying this and that, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, all churches have some form of ceremony to them, and it is. I mean, it is mystical. It is magical. I mean, what are you doing? You're praying to a spiritual entity, whether it's Jesus or the Virgin Mary or what have you. You're praying to a spiritual entity. You're interacting with a spiritual entity.
And there's so many people I know now that have altars in their own homes. I mean, you
Oh
go
yeah.
to church, there's an altar. Now, all of your your Santa Muerte followers, the skeleton lady, they have altars in their homes. And then the Spiritism people, they always have their little candles and what have you, and they have their home altars and things.
Oh yeah,
And it's
Catholics. Yeah, Catholics, for example, they'll have their altar. I've seen them. The Virgin Mary. Christ, candles, all that stuff. And it's again, it's their little sanctuary. In their home.
So where did radionics started in America with like Dr. Abrams, and it all started with health, and we won't go into that because it would take too long to explain. So it all
Right.
went into health, and then it was taken over by like George Delaware in the UK, and the UK really went with it on the health side.
Mm-hmm.
No, in America, it didn't take long for it to be shut down for health. So then, like you say, it wasn't until Uncle Chucky came in that then radionics became this magical thing that didn't have to be used for health. It could be used for manifesting. It can be used for everything, right? And
That is correct. Mm-hmm.
yeah, and I don't think even in the UK today that people really use it for the manifesting of it. I think more people are getting involved in doing that and learning about it because it's always been for health. Radionics is a health thing. It's for people. It's for animals, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now it's just like, okay, with Uncle Chucky, like you say, we have to praise the guy on this because without Uncle Chucky, well, you and I wouldn't be having this conversation right now. And I probably wouldn't have sold my business in the way I sold it, training I did and everything else. And that was why I suppose I left it. I did not realize what else it could do until I met my wonderful friend here, Dr. Motor, who then, between him and a few other people explained to me, okay, you can do other things with this. And also keeps you out of the intent of things, because you were talking about blowback on things as well, and yeah, I worry about that. I worry about if you have evil thoughts about people who try to do something bad, is it going to come back on you? One of the things I do use, I've got your Hunter Killer, and I highly recommend every listener out there, they need to call you after the show and buy it, because
Yeah,
it's in 24/7, Dr. Motor. And
yes. And again, that thing saved my life.
Peace of mind. I mean, I can go to bed at night and I have total peace of mind that I feel that everybody here is protected.
Yeah. Well, the thing
Do
about
I do
it
other
is,
things with setting mirrors around me? I do. Yeah.
yeah. Well, it's because the Hunter Killer it saved my life from Uncle Chucky. And we had a little bit of a falling out, and I know that I was becoming a tad too accident prone, and I was sitting ready to make a left-hand turn, and this full-size pickup truck hits me or rear ends me at about 45 to 50 miles an hour, and I'm at a standstill. And and I walk out of this thing without a scratch. But I'm thinking to myself, son of a bitch, Chucky, you evil little bastard. I know it's you. So I was just thankful nobody got hurt. But I immediately had to, kind of go on defense. But here's the thing, and I got and it was a mutual friend of ours. Chuck and I, we got back together on a show, and we buried the hatchet. And I'm going to say before Chuck's, had his strokes and and had all these serious health issues that we were able to mend the fences and became friends again.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And but there you go, like you say, it takes a different road than what he took. I mean, he wanted to be that evil Uncle Chucky, I suppose. It's like, Brad, you did me wrong. Dr. Mojo, you did me wrong, and I'm going to take you out. You know, you would have done things differently. You would have been, yeah, I'm pissed off that you did me wrong or something. But you probably wouldn't have gone that far, not on
No,
something as simple as
no,
that.
yeah,
Yeah.
and here's how I would do it, and this is what I suggest to people, and it's that's how I did it with a lot of people now, and it's taken a while to develop this technique. And again, I think we're going to close the show with this. What I do is I basically build a bubble or a mirror around myself. Okay, so whenever somebody throws any kind of crap at me or they try to harm me, whatever, it immediately bounces back at them tenfold. I'm unharmed. I'm out of the karma equation here. They create their own karma. If they don't attack me, nothing happens to them. But if they mess with me, something happens. It's sort of in a weird kind of way, it's sort of like the hunter killer, but it's basically sort of I don't know, proactive, if that makes sense. A little bit more proactive,
Okay.
and that's what
Can
I
I
do.
add can I add something quickly to that one?
Please.
Yeah. So there is a gentleman that makes a reagent that's called the Mirror of Life, and it basically does that. And in the area, so there's two ways that a Mirror of Life can work. So when you've got somebody like, we have a neighbor here that we don't care for us. So sometimes you want to send back, let's put all this evil, let's mirror it, imagine the mirrors around and it bounces back on them. But you know how you can really mess with them? Do you want to know how you can really mess with them?
Oh, please. Oh, please. Oh,
Yeah,
great one. Tell me.
yeah. Send them joy, send them love, send them happiness, send them the Ho'oponopono, send them all those things like that. Do the Ho'oponopono prayer, send it back to them, because when they're bitter and they're nasty people, they can't deal with that. They can't deal with niceness and love.
Mm. Yeah,
When you
it just.
drive past this person and you off and you smile, you can do it both ways. And you know what? If the niceness doesn't work, well then you know what? Send them back the shit they sent your way 10 times over, all right?
Yeah, I like I said, I kind of like that one. I like the Plan B a little bit better personally. It kind of fits my
That was
my
me calling you
personality.
the evil Dr. Motor.
Oh shit. There's nothing evil about me. It's just that, I believe in personal power, and
Yeah,
that's another thing I try to teach people. You know, I always had this running joke with a good friend of mine, and she said, "Oh, you have a little cult going on." I said, "The last thing in the world I want to be is a cult leader. My job is to make them their own cult leaders. In other words, you are the master of yourself. You control your life. All I'm trying to do is provide you the tools and a little bit of knowledge to help you do it. I mean, and what you do with that tool and that knowledge, that's entirely up to you." And another thing too, I think it kind of goes back to toward the beginning of this conversation. You know, we've met people, and when they say if they say this is not going to work for me, or if they say this will work for me, I always tell them you're right either way.
yeah, absolutely.
And so, well, anyway, on that note, is there anything that you'd like to close this wonderful show with?
So, Dr. Always, you're just wonderful. I mean, the
It's
world is
mutual.
it's a better place. It's a better place with you in it. It really is.
I try
I
to keep
mean,
it
if
more entertaining.
the folks that have not met you face to face, which I have had that delightful experience, right?
And you survived a
And
lot.
I survived meeting Dr. Moder, right?
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, and I gotta tell you, your husband and I tell you, he could be a brother. That man is freaking brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And
Hey, you married me. There you go.
well, okay, point taken. But yeah, and I think he's a man who has a damn good understanding, or better than average understanding of how the human mind works. And I feel blessed to know both you wonderful people, and again, it's all because of radionics. If it wasn't for radionics, you and I would not be having this conversation. And
Yeah,
so,
like I said, I thank you so much, and
Oh, I thank you.
I'd like to, if your
Oh, I think I,
listeners are open, I've got some very good friends that are into, yeah, that we could bring on the show.
oh, I think I've been trying to look for a good fit for the show because, you know, anyway, we'll talk more about this. I think you may fit the bill on this because one thing I like about you is you have a fantastic knowledge of this stuff. I mean, you have a good general knowledge on a lot of things, but you really have a far superior knowledge when it comes to radionics. And I think especially if we start doing like these little classrooms, to show people how to use these machines and set them up. Matter of fact, I'm going to invest in a little camera here that can actually, where I can pan down and people can look straight on a machine as I turn the dials and do all these different operations in the future. And I think with you and I interacting on how to do operations, I think this would be very beneficial to the audience. Because
You know,
apparently,
you're 100% right on that one, because when I first bought the Rad 5 and the company I bought it off of, it was great. I talked to the salesman, I purchased it, it arrived, and then I could never get anybody to answer the phone afterwards. It didn't come with an instruction manual. I watched the YouTube videos, but I had questions to ask. And then I did find this gentleman in Dallas that also had known the maker of the Rad 5, and we became friends. And I said, can I pay you for time to teach me how to use it, to show me how, because I really don't know. And then we became friends, and he was the guy that, like I say, gave me the love spell. So, to do something like that, for me in the early days, and even now, would love to have these videos to see it. And yeah, I think it would be great, and we could show the different devices and the different techniques and the things that you can do.
beautiful. I think this would be a great new course on the show because, I'm trying to I think I need to get back to my roots when it comes to the show, when it comes to actual information about radionics. And yeah, sure, we can, talk about cryptids every once in a while and UFOs and that kind of thing and whatever. But I think really people they come to the show to be informed and and hopefully have a laugh or two and again, I like just kidding around these shows and just having a good time. And I really don't take anything. I try not to take anything seriously because life is too damn short. It truly is. You should have a good time and enjoy yourselves. And that's really my philosophy when it comes to everything. And if you love what you do, it's not work. And I love what I do. And I've
Yeah,
been blessed.
if you can put up with the dry British sense of humor at
Oh, I
times, it
love
can
it.
be quite.
I love it. Like I said, you bring a little bit of class, and I've always made the joke that in America, if you walk in and you have a British accent, your IQ is automatically 20 points higher. And so because everybody's going to think you're the smartest person in the room because you have a British accent, and it just it's I don't know what it is, but they're far better than we Yanks and the accents, except for Cockney. I don't understand Cockney. What the hell is Cockney? Where the hell did that come from?
My grandfather was East End of London, Cockney Sparrow, up the apples in pears, which is up the stairs. They had their own little terms. They would sing things.
Oh, okay.
But going back to a lot of the Brits coming to America, there's some good ones that came over, right? I'm one of the good ones, but
Yes, I.
there's also a lot of Brits that came over to America because guess what? They couldn't make, and they come over and they hang a shingle and they think they can sell their wares because they're British. But shit, these people were crap in England and they're crap in America, but some of the Americans, because they're British, let them get away with it, right?
Yeah, I mean some of the greatest salesmen on these infomercials or whatever British. I don't know what the hell it is. It's just the British accent to Americans is magical. It really truly is. Who I don't know who said this, but was it two countries separated by a common language? And I don't really see that because I understand you almost everything you say. And one thing I noticed about you, you actually pronounce your T's.
Hmm, okay.
Yeah, like if you ever, I don't know where I've talked to British and they'll say like ball. they don't pronounce the T's. Like in a bottle or something like that, they won't pronounce the T's.
Well,
Anyway, it's just.
and I lived in Louisiana, so I can even say, y'all want to come over? Oh, yeah, I mean, you learn everything. Well,
All right,
it's
what can I
time
say?
for me to have a cup of tea before I kick back
All right. Well, yeah, we've been on for
on
an
the
hour and
TV
20
tonight.
minutes. Yes,
I
yes.
thoroughly enjoyed it.
Oh, I've thoroughly enjoyed it too. All right. Well, enough of our yakking. We've been doing this for an hour and 20 minutes. All right. All right, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you enjoy this. Please let me know. Bye.
Bye.